Before Yellowstone, before John Dutton, the bunkhouse, and the governor's office, there was a man who thought one journey could save his family. Instead, it killed his daughter and built an empire on her grave. This is the whole story of 1883 summarized in 28 minutes. Season 1 doesn't start on a hopeful morning. It starts with smoke, fire, and a girl already dying. In a flash-forward set in late 1883, teenage Elsa Dutton stumbles through a burned wagon train on the Great Plains as Lakota warriors finish slaughtering a group of pioneers. She grabs a fallen rifle, shoots a rider off his horse, wild and fearless, but an arrow slams into her side. She drops to her knees, surrounded, staring up at men who look ready to end her life. Everything freezes on that image, and then the story pulls us back months earlier to explain how a girl like that ended up there in the first place. We meet Shay Brennan on the worst day of his life. A former Union captain, he stands outside a small Texas house as smoke curls from its windows. Inside are the bodies of his wife and daughter, taken by smallpox and then by fire. He can't stand to see the home they shared turned into a tomb, so he burns the whole thing down. The next morning, he sits in the yard with a rifle in his mouth, ready to follow them. His old friend and fellow soldier Thomas rides up and simply tells him no. There's a job waiting in Fort Worth, Texas. Escort a group of European immigrants to Oregon for the Pinkerton Agency. If Shay still wants to die after that, fine. For now, they have work. On the way to Fort Worth, they see another survivor. A lone-covered wagon is under attack by thieves. A man crouches behind a wheel and calmly outshoots every one of them. This is James Dutton, a former Confederate captain who spent 3 years in a Union prison camp. Now he's trying to haul his family west to whatever future is left. Shay and Thomas sit on their horses and watch him work, impressed. When James finishes, they ride down, warn him not to steal the dead men's horses unless he wants more trouble, and move on. James is traveling ahead of his family with the wagon and supplies. His wife Margaret, teenage daughter Elsa, 5-year-old son John, his rigid sister Claire, and Claire's daughter Mary Abel are still on a train coming from Tennessee. On that train, you can already see the fault lines. Claire is pious and bitter from losing 6 children and a husband. Elsa is barefoot in the aisles, flirting out the window, hungry for a life bigger than Tennessee. Margaret is caught between her wild daughter and her joyless sister, trying to keep the peace as their old life rattles away behind them. When the Duttons reunite in Fort Worth, the myth of the West collides with reality immediately. In town, James is pickpocketed. He chases the thief, shoots him, and a crowd finishes the job by stringing the man up. Nobody sees a problem with it. That night at the hotel, a drunken man stumbles into Elsa and John's room, assumes Elsa is a prostitute, and tries to force himself on her. James bursts in and kills him without hesitation. By the end of their first day in town, Elsa has seen 2 men die and watched her father killed to protect her. The idea that this journey will be some grand adventure is already cracking. Meanwhile, Shay and Thomas meet their clients, a big group of European immigrants fresh off the boat. They barely speak English except through an interpreter named Joseph. Most can't swim. They don't know how to handle wagons or livestock. They bring pianos and heirlooms, but almost no weapons. They've paid to be led to Oregon, to a fantasy of free land and fresh starts, with almost no idea how deadly the trail really is. Shay takes their money anyway, knowing the truth. Some will make it, many won't. As Shay is sizing up the settlers, he and Thomas spot James again and realize how valuable a man like that would be on the trail. James is suspicious of Pinkertons and refuses at first, but after the attempted assault on Elsa, he and Margaret understand that traveling alone with a teenage girl through an outlaw country might be even more dangerous. When Shay's wagon train rolls out of Fort Worth, the Dutton wagon quietly falls in line behind them. If you like these full series breakdowns of the Yellowstone universe, this is a good time to hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest. The trail doesn't ease them into danger, it throws them straight into it. We flash back briefly to the Civil War, to the Battle of Antietam, where a young James Dutton stands shell-shocked in the aftermath of one of the bloodiest days in American history. A Union general speaks to him gently, as if James is already half dead. Back in the present, that same man now butts heads with Shay over everything from the route to leadership. Shay hires 2 cowboys, Wade and Ennis, to help round up a herd of feral cattle. The immigrants can't afford to buy beef, so they'll have to catch it. Elsa joins the roundup, riding like she was born to it, grinning in the dust while the older men stare, surprised that a girl can handle a horse like that. While the cowboys are away, trouble rides straight into camp. A group of armed riders approaches, asking to water their horses and pass through. Claire, boiling with grief and rage at the world, starts throwing rocks at them. It's pointless and reckless. The riders retreat for the moment, but everyone who understands the West knows what's coming. They return later, guns drawn, and attack the wagons. Several immigrants die, and Mary Abel is shot in front of her mother. The men ride into town with Shay, Thomas, James, and Joseph, joining forces with the legendary Marshal Jim Courtright. In a crowded saloon, Joseph identifies the men responsible. Courtright acts swiftly, ending the threat in moments. Justice is served, but the town turns hostile, forcing the wagon train to leave at dawn. Claire refuses. Mary Abel was her 7th child and her last. Sitting beside the fresh grave, she calmly tells Margaret there's nothing left waiting for her on the road ahead. When morning comes, the wagons roll on without her. Shay looks back one final time and understands. On his darkest days, he never found that kind of resolve. He doesn't judge her, he respects it. For the Duttons, it's another hard truth of the frontier. The West doesn't care how much you've lost, it will always take more. As the convoy gets farther from town, the dangers shift but never stop. The immigrants start dying in ways that feel random. A snake bite here, dysentery there, a wagon wheel over someone's chest. Every time someone dies in a careless accident, James quietly moves his family's camp a little farther away from the main group. In his mind, carelessness is contagious, and he doesn't want it infecting the people he loves. What scares the wagon train most, though, isn't snakes or disease. It's rivers. A rattlesnake kills one person at a time. A bandit can be shot. A sick person can be left behind if things get desperate. But a deep, fast river can drown half the group in a single afternoon. When they reach the Brazos River, that fear becomes real. Shay wants to approach the crossing slowly and carefully. James wants to move fast and keep ahead of Winter. There isn't a safe option, only different risks. In the end, they decide they can't afford delays. They'll cross here. Before the main crossing, James makes a choice that's selfish and understandable at the same time. He takes Margaret, John, and their wagon across at night. With a rope tied to the far bank and Margaret driving, they inch through the dark water until they reach the other side. By morning, his family is safe on the far shore, and James can focus on helping everyone else. Elsa stays back with the herd and the cowboys, drifting farther from the expectations of being a proper lady and closer to the saddle. She and Ennis are already slipping into a flirtatious rhythm, their banter easy and dangerous in equal measure. At dawn, Shay gives the settlers one of his harshest speeches. If they want to survive, they have to strip their wagons down to the essentials. No more pianos, no heavy furniture, no useless memories. For this part of their lives, they are no longer blacksmiths, carpenters, or musicians. They are just travelers. Travelers who try to carry their old lives on their backs die in the river. People sob as they toss prized belongings into the dirt, but they obey. The first people are ferried across. Wagons follow on ropes and wheels, some making it, some tipping over and filling with water. Several immigrants drown as those on the bank watch helplessly. Margaret tries to save one and fails. By the time the cattle swim across, driven by Elsa and Ennis, the wagon train is lighter, poorer, and more traumatized. The crossing costs them more than lives. A wagon loaded with precious food is lost, and supplies are suddenly low. Later, Joseph admits that on top of that, one of their own has been hoarding the settlers' remaining stores. Shay, Thomas, and James storm into the thief's camp, beat him down, take back the food, and banish him and the other thieves from the group. Everyone knows that out here, being cut loose is almost a death sentence, but they also know they can't allow stealing when everyone is already hungry. Wade has already warned them that bandits are operating in this region. Those exiles are basically bait left out on the prairie. In the middle of all this, Elsa falls in love. Margaret tries to warn her during a bath in the river. She tells her daughter there's no such thing as complete freedom. There are always laws, customs, and responsibilities. Right now, on this trail, Elsa is as free as she will ever be. Whatever she does at this moment, she'll carry it forever. That night, Elsa follows her heart anyway. She sneaks out to meet Ennis, and they sleep together not far from camp, loud enough that half the convoy can hear them. Margaret stumbles across them in the dark, seeing the thing she's been trying so hard to prevent. The next morning, Margaret gives Elsa a blunt talk about consequences. One night can turn into a lifetime if a baby comes out of it. Elsa walks straight to Ennis and asks if he's man enough to marry her and raise that child if it happens. Ennis is stunned but doesn't back down. He tells her he loves her and will look after her, with or without her father's approval. When James rides up to confront him, Ennis stands his ground. He promises not to dishonor Elsa and even says he'd run away with her if he had to. James studies him, decides he believes him, and, much to Margaret's horror, gives the couple his blessing. For a moment, it feels like someone might actually get a happy ending. Then the bandits come. The thieves Shay banished earlier are found massacred, their wagons burned. Bandits have used them as a stepping stone to track the main convoy. Shay, Thomas, James, Wade, Joseph, and the others set a trap. Joseph and his wife pretend to be easy targets left alone by the wagons. When the bandits close in, the victims pull rifles. The others ride in behind, and a chaotic gunfight explodes across the grassland. In camp, the women grab guns and fire from behind wagons. Margaret kills a man herself, her face hardening in a way that can't be undone. One bandit rides through the chaos and straight at Elsa and the cattle. Ennis spurs his horse and races to intercept. The two men fire almost at the same time. The bandit falls. Ennis takes a bullet and collapses. James reaches him in time to hear his last words. "I loved her." By the time Elsa gets there, Ennis is bleeding out. She looks at her father, desperate for him to fix this the way he's fixed everything else. He can't. When she realizes Ennis is truly gone, she breaks. Her grief flips into something colder. She walks over to the wounded bandit and, with a steady hand, puts a bullet in his head. In a single night, she loses her first great love and whatever innocence she had left. The next stretch of the trail is grief and numbness. Elsa sits by Ennis's grave, hollowed out. Shay joins her. For the first time, he opens up about what keeps him going. He tells her that when you truly love someone, you trade pieces of your soul with them. When they die, part of you goes with them, but part of them stays inside you, seeing the world through your eyes. His wife wanted to see the ocean, and as long as he's alive, some part of her still can. That's why he's headed west. It doesn't have to make sense. It just keeps him from eating a bullet. Hearing this, Elsa decides she can't sit and rot at that grave. She wipes her face, gets back on her horse, and rides back to the herd. At Doan's Crossing, a rough trading post on the edge of Indian Territory, the wagon train finally gets a moment to breathe. They hire a camp cook named Cookie and a new cowboy, Colton, to fill Ennis's empty saddle. Nomi, the Romani widow whose food was stolen before, sells her late husband's belongings just to keep going. Thomas quietly buys her a mirror as a gift. She reads it exactly for what it is. A man doesn't give a woman something like that unless he cares. Thomas pretends it's nothing, but Nomi calls him out for being afraid to be loved, and slowly, they begin to build something together in the middle of all this death. Trouble finds Elsa in town again. A man catcalls her and she draws a gun on him, absolutely ready to shoot. James shoves the man away and takes her pistol, reminding her you don't point a gun at something unless you intend to kill it. Elsa calmly says she did. Everyone believes her, and that's what scares him. Margaret spends the day drinking with a local shopkeeper, laughing for the first time in a long time before breaking down over what this journey is doing to her family. When James comes to fetch her, they argue about Elsa and about the quiet life in Tennessee they traded for this endless road. North of Doan's Crossing, the convoy enters Comanche country. The settlers pay a tax in cattle to cross safely, and a Comanche warrior named Sam rides with the group. He tells Elsa he took his name from the man who killed his wife, after he killed that man in return. Elsa is fascinated. They race their horses, and when she wins, he decides the horse isn't Lightning. She is. He nicknames her Lightning with the yellow hair and gives her a knife to replace the dull one she carries. She hands him a lock of her hair in return. What starts as teasing turns into a bond that feels deeper than anything she had with Ennis. A storm rolls in, and Sam warns Shay that tornadoes are coming. The settlers can't move fast enough. The sky goes dark, and the wind rips the prairie apart. Wagons flip, tents shred, horses vanish into the storm. Elsa and Sam huddle together in a low spot as the tornado roars overhead, and when fear peaks, she grabs him and kisses him. When the storm finally passes, most of the people are alive, but many of their wagons and supplies are gone. Whatever fantasy the immigrants had about a smooth road to Oregon is completely dead. Not long after, Cookie spots rustlers driving off the cattle. Shay, Thomas, James, and Elsa ride after them. Margaret, already pushed to the edge by grief and fear, is furious that her daughter has once again been taken into a gunfight and rides after them too. The standoff ends in blood. Shay and the others kill most of the rustlers. One tries to flee and Margaret shoots him, adding another body to a count she never imagined. 3 more rustlers break around the fight and chase Elsa, but Sam and his partner ride in and cut them down. Out here, even love stories are written with rifles. Afterward, Sam and Elsa hunt bison together. She drops one cleanly, and he has her eat a bite of the heart, telling her its strength becomes theirs. Between the ritual, the knife, and the hair, Elsa starts to believe she belongs to 2 worlds at once, white settler and Comanche warrior. Practically though, the group is in trouble. With wagons smashed and food low, Shay suggests turning toward Denver and wintering in a real town. James refuses. He didn't drag his family across half the country to end up working for someone else in a mining camp. The immigrants side with him. They still want Oregon. While the older men argue about roots, Elsa and Sam decide they're done waiting on other people's plans. They fall fully in love and agree to marry. Margaret warns her that she doesn't really understand what she's choosing, that loving a man and choosing his whole way of life forever are not the same thing. Elsa doesn't care. She calmly announces she'll ride with her family to Oregon and then come back to live with Sam as his wife. Sam goes to James like an old world suitor, offering horses for Elsa's hand. James doesn't reach for his gun this time. He asks questions, hears Sam's answers, and realizes he can't control his daughter anymore. He can only choose whether to lose her fighting or let her go with his blessing. He chooses to bless the match. The next morning, the wagon train moves on. Elsa, in Comanche dress, rides beside Sam until she can't anymore. They shout their love across the distance, promising to meet again in June. Back at the wagons, everybody looks at her like she's something wild and dangerous, half cowgirl, half Comanche. To Elsa, it's the first time she feels fully herself. To Margaret, it's proof that this trail has taken her little girl somewhere she can't follow. Months pass. The convoy pushes into Lakota territory in what will become Wyoming as winter and the Rockies get closer. Joseph is bitten by a rattlesnake while helping his wife after her horse throws her. He does what he can, tourniquet, knife, suction, but they need a real doctor. At the same time, Shay, Thomas, and James ride ahead and find something horrific, a Lakota camp, where women and children have been slaughtered. The killers are white horse thieves, self-appointed deputies of the Wyoming Stock Growers Association. The men realize that when the Lakota warriors return, they'll assume the wagon train did this. The only chance is to hunt down the real culprits and hope the Lakota listen. They ride off following the trail, leaving strict instructions for the others to stay put and explain if the Lakota show up. Back at the wagons, fear wins. Cookie insists that sitting in the open is suicide and convinces many settlers to ride with him to a nearby army fort. Margaret and Elsa follow after, Margaret forcing Elsa into a dress so she won't ride into a fort in Comanche clothes. On the way, the Lakota intercept them. Cookie dies first. Warriors sweep through the scattered wagons, killing settlers and smashing what's left of their supplies. Wade drags as many wagons as he can into a defensive ring, but 3 families break and bolt. Elsa makes a split-second choice. Instead of staying with her mother and little brother, she rides toward those breakout wagons to pull some of the Lakota away. One rider knocks her from her horse. We're back at the opening scene. Elsa on the ground, surrounded, grabbing a rifle, shooting one warrior, and taking an arrow through the torso. The Lakota leader is about to finish her when she starts speaking Comanche. With the few words she learned from Sam, she explains that her people didn't attack the Lakota camp and that her father is hunting the real killers right now. At that same time, Shay, Thomas, and James catch the deputies, kill them, and reclaim the stolen horses. On their way back, they meet the Lakota men, point them toward the bodies in the remuda, and hope it's enough. The Lakota leader decides it is. He calls off his warriors. Elsa is still alive, but James can see from the wound and the filth on the arrow that something inside her has been shredded and poisoned. At Fort Casper, under the control of those same stock growers, there's no real surgeon. A doctor looks Elsa over and quietly confirms what James already knows. The arrow went through her liver, and the filthy arrowhead has already seeded a deadly infection. He mentions Fort Laramie as a long-shot option, but no one really believes they can get her there in time. Staying at Casper is dangerous too. If anyone links them to the dead deputies, they're finished. Shay and James decide to leave the fort immediately and head north off the main trail, following the Bozeman route toward what will one day be Montana. When Shay explains this plan, most of the settlers revolt. They've buried husbands, wives, and children along this road. They didn't come all this way to stop somewhere nameless and freeze. They still want Oregon, and they want it now. Shay warns them that without real leadership, they're probably marching into their own graves, but they go anyway, chasing the promise of soldiers in Oregon with no one left to lead them. Later, we see the result in a single brutal image. Their wagons burned, and their bodies left scattered on the prairie. Another failed dream rotting in the dust. A smaller group stays with Shay and James. Thomas, Nomi, her boys, Joseph and his comatose wife, Margaret, John, and Elsa. Joseph's leg is turning black from the venom. The only way to save him is to amputate. They get him drunk, hard work on a German who knows how to drink, and Sawyer and Thomas cut the leg off while the others hold him down. Elsa lies nearby, half delirious, watching as this journey breaks yet another good man. Joseph lives. His wife doesn't. When he wakes, he's a widower on one leg in a country that still doesn't feel like his. For Elsa, time starts to slip. She wakes one day convinced only a night has passed since Fort Casper. James tells her it's been 3 days. Her body is so overwhelmed that her sense of time unravels. She notices the way her father looks at her and demands the truth. He tries to dodge, saying he stares because she's the most important thing in his life, and he's worried. Elsa is done being protected. She knows he thinks she's going to die, and she wants him to say it. In Crow territory, 3 riders approach while James is out hunting. Elsa tries to pull them away from the wagons, but is too weak and falls from her horse. The Crow aren't hostile. They see how sick she is and offer help. Their leader, Spotted Eagle, brings her to a stream where medicine women clean and treat the wound as best they can. Later, he tells James gently that nothing more can be done. The arrow and the infection it carried have already claimed her. Elsa overhears enough to understand. She feels betrayed that James lied earlier, but there's no time left for anger. She asks him for one last favor. Let her choose the place she dies. Spotted Eagle suggests a valley further north, a place of rich summers and brutal winters he calls paradise. He tells James he can settle there, but warns that in 7 generations, his people will take the land back. On the condition that the Crow can keep hunting there, James agrees. In that moment, the Dutton claim to Yellowstone is born, not as a legal deed, but as a promise made over a dying child. To give Elsa the death she wants, James and his daughter leave the wagons behind. James asks Shay to look after Margaret and John and lead the rest of the group to somewhere they can survive the winter. Shay agrees, keeping his word to guide people as far as he can. Margaret is shattered at letting them ride away, knowing they won't all come back, but she understands it's the last kindness they can offer. James and Elsa ride into Paradise Valley, following Spotted Eagle's directions, until Elsa feels the end coming. She picks a lone tree near a creek and decides that's where she wants to stop. They sit under it and talk. Elsa remembers watching birds as a child, realizing how smart they were as they pecked worms out of the wet ground after rain. James remembers her as a screaming baby. He asks if she's scared. She says she understands it now, that there's a moment where your dreams and your memories merge, and that's heaven. She leans against him, tells him, "You'll be my blanket," and closes her eyes. A bird hops nearby, pecking at the ground just like in her first memory. Elsa smiles faintly and says, "You birds sure are smart," and then she's gone. The narration that follows comes from somewhere after that. In her heaven, Elsa rides a good horse across open plains under a permanent sunrise. The cattle are wild, the storms stay distant, and the man who loves her is there. She says she has seen death now, and it wasn't a monster. It smiled at her, and it was beautiful. The show doesn't end there. It jumps forward a year to show what survival actually looks like. Joseph, on crutches with one leg, starts building a home alone on a patch of land. The life he dreamed of twisted into something smaller and lonelier than he imagined. Thomas and Nomi arrive in Oregon, standing with her boys beside a river where they'll build their own house. The children, who once blamed their mother for their father's death, finally run into her arms. Out of all these stories, theirs is the closest thing 1883 allows to a happy ending. And Shay Brennan, the man who began this story burning his family and reaching for a rifle, finally reaches the Pacific Ocean. He stands on the beach, staring at the endless water his wife wanted to see. A hummingbird hovers near him like a tiny spirit that refuses to rest. He talks to his wife like she's there, tells her about the people he brought as far as he could, and decides he's done. With the surf rolling in and that little bird still hanging in the air, Shay raises his rifle and pulls the trigger. 1883 isn't a glamorous origin story. 1883 isn't a glamorous origin story. James only finds his land because he needs a place to bury Elsa. A family finds a home, a legend begins, and everyone who paves the way pays in blood. If you want more recaps like this, 1883, 1923, Yellowstone, and beyond, make sure you're subscribed before you ride out.